We're so happy to have you here. My name's Robbie. I use he, him pronouns. I am not in my typical space today. I'm sitting up against a wall with a window in the background. I've got a red shirt on. I have kind of a bright window behind me, perhaps. Closed captioning is enabled, and you can turn it on, I think, down at the bottom of your Zoom. Welcome to Inform Your Community. We offer events that combine information and fun. Today, we're going to be talking about Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. Very important day in Mexican culture. And we're going to follow Stacy, as always, as she builds a very cool ofrenda. And we're also joined by Al Gonzalez, who's going to just kind of back us up and steer us where we might go wrong, and help us, ground us in what we're doing, since neither Stacy nor I necessarily do this every year, but maybe we will going forward. So maybe Al, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Al Gonzalez, use he, him pronouns, and I'm from Northwestern Ohio. So I am about 600 or 700 miles west of you, and I'm wearing a black shirt, black glasses on, and I'm sitting in kind of our side room that has large windows and some furniture in it.
Cool. And welcome. We're so happy to have you. And Stacy, are you unmuted?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I'd love to tell you a bit more about the craft and why I'm doing it, and introduce myself. My name is Stacy, and I use she, her pronouns. And my background is just a plain black background, because we use this one for the video when we send it out after our event. And but I have salt and pepper hair, as they say, and am wearing a blue shirt. And I'll tell you a little bit about why I chose our craft today. I used to go to a Day of the Dead event every year. I still do sometimes, but I used to go, especially when my children were younger, because it's juxtapositioned right after Halloween. And so we'd go to Halloween events, and we'd go to Day of the Dead events. And we saw them as related, because there were these, skulls that seemed to be this kind of common theme. Oh, where are they here? Common theme. There we go. Common theme in both. And so we just associated it kind of with Halloween. And I thought, I really want to know more about what this event is about. And as I looked into it, I realized, other than these colorful, what's called sugar skulls, really what Day of the Dead is about in particular is really honoring the people who've come before us, and keeping them alive in our memories. And that's not surprising that there's this kind of belief in what goes on after somebody passes away, and the importance of keeping people in our lives and thinking about an afterlife in Mexican culture, because over 70% of Mexicans do have the belief in an afterlife, or anyway, Catholicism. And so that is also a religion that's shared really around the world. So it's a very familiar concept, and I certainly related to it and understood it once I started to get into understanding the topic more. And today, specifically, we're going to focus on, and I'm so grateful because it was actually Al's suggestion to do this, we're making an ofrenda. And with this, we're really making an altar or offerings to those who have passed away, and those who we love, who aren't with us anymore. And so as you're thinking about your craft, think about who you want to make this ofrenda for. And you may even want to, we'll talk about it a little bit, but think about where you might have a picture of that person that you can use for this altar that we'll be making. Yes, so I'm looking forward to celebrating and making this ofrenda with everyone.
And the ofrenda is the altar itself, or is the ofrenda the offering?
Alberto, you want to take that one?
Technically, the ofrenda those would be the things that you would put on the altar.
Okay, because I've heard people call like just the whole thing the ofrenda.
Yeah, it's kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be too technical about it,
Okay,
but they are very special. The whole thing is very special.
cool. Well, if anybody has any questions or comments during the crafting, feel free to unmute yourself, talk or write in the chat. We'll be monitoring it, and let's get started. Thank you all so much for being here.
And Alberto, can you tell us some
Oh, Stacy, you're muted.
So sorry about that. I was going to say, Alberto, can you tell us some more about the spiritual life? Who's there? Who's in that spiritual life, and how do we keep them alive?
Well, everybody would be in that spiritual life. I think in the afterlife is something that is very active in Mexican and Mexican American cultures. Perhaps the most famous individual is La Llorona, which means the weeping woman. But she's kind of this vengeful ghost, and there have been stories and songs and all kinds of movies made about her because she's so famous. But most of the time, people think about relatives, and sometimes I've even heard stories of people hearing the voices of their relatives telling them that everything's going to be okay, to be careful. Just very comforting surroundings that our loved ones are with us all the time.
That is beautiful and wonderful, and I'm glad we're going to take advantage of embodying that spirit with our own ofrendas today. And so thank you for telling us a bit about that, Al. And I wanted to tell you what the materials are for our craft, so that while we're talking, you can start to go get these. If either Tyler or Robbie, whoever has a chance, can put the materials in the chat, maybe in a simplified version, that would be great, so that people can reference the chat for what materials they need. So most of you on this call probably received our kit. In this kit, that came with a box like this. Make sure you keep that box, that was important. And in that box, you had a background of some color, you had some glue, and you had a packet like this. So even if you didn't have whether you had our kit or didn't have our kit, there's still a few things you want to have from home. One is a scissor. You want to have that handy for this event. You want to have a small bowl, because we're going to be dealing with a lot of small parts. So having a bowl is really helpful, as well as you want to have a picture of your loved one would be great. That's something you want to have handy as well. So if you don't have our kit, you want to find some kind of a box. That's kind of important. That's the basis here. However, if you don't have our kit, it's fine. We're going to give you some options of what to get, or you can actually make all the pieces of the craft and then find the box later. So don't get too hung up on finding a box, but just to give you some options for it. So our box is about 4 inches by 4 inches big. This big box, shipping box here is a bit bigger. So but you could use that just depending on the size of the other materials you have. But things as simple as, here's an ink box. Here's a jewelry box, a paper jewelry box. Even for those of you who have kids who like Roblox, these are the toys that Roblox comes in. This would be a super cute ofrenda box, although typically it would not be necessarily made of plastic. And another option is to go online, and you can actually make your own box. This one my son made, and you can just find instructions on how to make your own box online. Lots of folks have instructions for how to make a box out of cardboard or out of paper. So, and that's what this one is. And you see, very, very similar idea to this. You don't need to worry so much about having this cover on it. That was just a bonus that we were able to do, but that's not necessary for your ofrenda. In addition to your box, a few things you need. Your kit will have come with, and you can go ahead, if you have your bowl, you can go ahead and take out your kit and start and kind of dump it right in that bowl. But your kit had lots of items in it. Okay, so part of your kit were beads. Okay, you're going to want to get at least 2 beads in your kit. If you had it, you had 3 beads, various colors, and I'm a little messy over here right now while I'm showing you all of this. But you have, there you go, some 3 beads in your kit. But really, any beads will do. The bigger the hole, the better. Some of you may have pony beads around the house. That's great. Pony beads are really easy to find. And if you don't have beads, we're going to end up using paper as well. So we can always draw the items that we don't have. But see if you can find 2 beads around your house. Pony beads are great. Those are the ones that you might use in hair, or you might use in crafts sometimes. Also, you want to have a button. So all of the kits had 1 button. And so you're going, there you go. So 1 button is fine. It doesn't matter how many holes in it, but it should be about an inch big. A little smaller, a little bigger is fine. So 1 button. You want to have string or thread. That's really important because we're going to make some garland, and that will look lovely if you can have the string or garland. Any color is great. Ideally, orange or red, orange, red, yellow. Those are the best colors. We'll be using it for 2 purposes. One of them is a flame. So it'd be great to have the color that kind of looks like a flame. Also, miniature fruit. And I know that's probably going to be the hardest one for you to find, is miniature fruit. But you'd be surprised. Sometimes we have beads shaped as fruit. Sometimes we have charms shaped as fruit. Erasers that are shaped as fruit. It doesn't have to be fruit, any kind of food. We'll talk more about what the meaning of that is, but any kind of food will work here. Also, if you have Play-Doh, you have Sculpey, or some kind of clay material that you can make something out of, you can go ahead and use that and just make some quick food items. You know, banana is pretty easy to make, or an apple, just so you have some kind of fruit. If not, we're going to work with paper as well for that, so don't worry. We will use butterflies. In our kit, we had those, but don't worry, you can just draw some butterflies, not a problem at all. They're pretty easy to draw. And as well, we want you to have some spare paper around. We're going to be doing some cutting with those. If you have any paper that already has some kind of cutting into it. So if you have our kit, this is the type of paper that we're going to be using. But you can use, for example, if you have paper doilies, okay, paper doilies are great. We can use the edge. You can just, here's one where I just cut the edge of a doily. I happen to have some neat ribbon that's made of paper and that has cuts into it. Or if you ever made snowflakes at school or at home as a craft, you can use that same idea and cut some paper. So again, don't worry about if you don't have this particular kind of already pre-cut paper, we can work on that later. In addition to that, fabric, any kind of fabric will do. This is the type of fabric that came in the kit, but really, this is just kind of random fabric we had around the house. You can an old t-shirt that has stains on it, any kind of fabric. So we'll make our tablecloth. If you don't have fabric, that's fine too. You can go ahead and use some paper towel. Easy thing. I remember when I was young, I made dresses on my dolls out of paper towels. So paper towels is a great material to use for this type of thing. So in addition to that, just some plain sheets of paper you'll want. That's really important. Like I said, we might end up drawing things. Pens, markers, or crayons will be helpful. Particularly, you can use colors like orange and yellow. Like I mentioned, those would be a bit symbolic for us. As well, colors of the Mexican flag will work. Green, white, and red are great colors to incorporate. And then glue would be another wonderful item for you to have handy. Definitely, it's already in the kit. Ideally, a stick glue is great because it'll dry quicker. But if you have a white glue, that is fine as well. So stick glue or some kind of white glue is great. Just a few more other things, and I know this is a craft that has a lot of materials to it, but wait till you see how it turns out. In the end, I'm going to show you a couple of examples. What you'll want are some, ideally, this is ideal, is some wood beads. This is what's in the kit. You either got some version of this or you got some version of this. You can also use really anything that's kind of chunky. Okay, so 2 pieces of material that are kind of chunky and can hold a bit of weight. These are beads. These extra ones are just kind of weird beads I had lying around. As long as they're flat, at least on one side, that will help. Having said that, another thing that you can do if you don't have our kit and you don't have those materials is a toilet paper roll. Just cut is always a great idea. So you take a toilet paper roll and you can just cut it. And we can use that as the legs of our table later. So really you're just looking for something sturdy to put your altar on. And then we'll want in your kit, you have it, it's a, I'm just gonna take out my kit for a second. You have these pieces right here. So these are just kind of wood plaques, but you certainly don't need wood plaques. You can take just some cardboard and absolutely just cut your cardboard into any piece of cardboard into that type of size. I mentioned that our boxes have a colored background. Your kits have that right in the box itself. They are peel and stick, so you can peel it to the back if you want it a little bit more sturdy, but you don't need to, because once you put that altar in there and glue it in, these won't be going anywhere. So that's up to you if you want to peel and stick it. If you don't have this color background, don't worry at all. That's not necessary. It was just to make this kind of more lively. And then last thing is some fabric flowers, if you have them. In our kit, we have these, which are super cute, but we also have some plastic flowers which we'll use for another part of the ofrenda. Probably you won't have these little plastic ones. If you do, those are great. Or fabric flowers are great. If you don't have fabric flowers, go ahead and get some tissue, because we can make some really cute little flowers on our own with the tissue paper, okay? And you can color them with crayons or markers as well later on. So let me just show you, what our kit is going to look like when we're all done. And I am so excited to show you this, the great unveiling of our little sample of what our ofrenda looks like. So we have it in the box. We open our cabinet up, and there's our ofrenda. You can see it. That's a picture of my dad in there. So commemorating my father, keeping him in my heart and mind, and then all of our little ingredients there. And you'll get a chance to see this. Let me see if I can get you the right angle here. There you go, as well. So that's what we're going to be making today. A lot of pizzas, but we're going to have fun making our craft. While folks are getting those materials, if you don't already have our kit, I'm wondering, Alberto, if you would be willing to share with us some information on about some other types. Where this ofrenda is really fun to make, but some other types, things about Mexican culture that are fun.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I think that Mexican music is really fun. I think most people are familiar with mariachi music or kind of traditional wedding music. But there are also other types of music like banda music, which is kind of brass, music, horns, norteño music, and ranchera music. And in fact, on Netflix right now, they're showing a series called El Rey, which is about Vicente Fernandez. And he was one of the most famous ranchera singers in Mexican history. And he really recently passed away, but it's a series that is really pretty fascinating. And it's a glimpse of the music industry in Mexico at that time. But there are other styles of more like pop music in Mexico. Juan Gabriel, who was sometimes known as Juanga, was another very famous recording artist, sold millions of records. And actually, I had a chance to see his mansion when I was in Juarez a few years ago, and they have big posters of him on the outer gates, and it's just a very beautiful home. Most people might remember Selena. She had a series, several series, and she was a Mexican-American artist from Texas, and I was able to see her perform in San Antonio back in, I think, 1992. And this is my Selena glow-in-the-dark t-shirt. So
I love it. I love it. That's great.
She's still an icon.
That. That is fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. And other than music, what other art forms are important in Mexican culture?
Well, Guillermo del Toro was well known. He's an Academy Award winning filmmaker who produced the Book of Life, and it incorporates a lot of the images from Day of the
right.
Dead.
That's right.
And it's really a beautiful story. People might also be familiar with Frida Kahlo, kind of Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo. And she's a very famous artist who, she composed very intimate and profound self-portraits. And we even have a tile that in our house, we have it hanging in our living room. This is Frida Kahlo, and so she's also a very famous artist.
Great.
So Mexican art is something that is really known worldwide. Even in Detroit, Michigan, we have murals that were painted by Diego Rivera, and
Really,
the Mexican art is everywhere.
that's fantastic. I love that you shared that the tile of Frida Kahlo as well. That's great. We've gone to some exhibits of work related to her. That is amazing. And we have our little artist here as well. I know people might still be gathering materials, and I know those of you who have the materials are, really waiting to go. But I want to tell you a little bit more about, the importance of thinking while you're doing this craft about the person who you want to have be the central focus of this. Think about if you have that picture and if you can find it. Otherwise, not a problem if you don't have it for today. You can always go find it later on and add it to your ofrenda later. In Mexican culture, family is very important. And certainly for me, in my ofrenda, I put my father, and I'm guessing even though not everybody, probably not most people on this event are from Mexican culture, I get the feeling that the person you're thinking about is going to be a member of your family. And in Mexican culture, it's not just kind of like your immediate family, oftentimes extended family, even farther extended family than you might even think of are associated with family. When you think family, it's really not just your immediate family. How you might think of it in some other cultures, it might be grandparents and cousins and so forth. So I wouldn't be surprised if most of the folks on the call, though not all, would have a family member as their main person that they're going to be thinking of when they make their ofrenda today. So do you think we're ready to go, folks? We want to start making our ofrenda? I'm so excited to be working on this with you all. If you have any questions as we're going along, let us know. My kids also made 2 versions as well. And so throughout the event, I'll make sure to show some other versions of how these came out as well. If you have your kit, this part's easy because you already have your cabinet, okay? So that, just hold on. If you want to, you can pull out this part that's in the back, go ahead and peel it. Okay, and then you can stick it to the back so that it won't come out, but you don't have to do that. The peeling could take a little time. It's up to you. You can definitely do that though. If you don't have it, you can go ahead and, like I said, use that the top of a gift box for it. Or you can use a shipping container. You can even make your own. If you are using, let's say, your own or the jewelry box, it's fine because you can just take one piece of it. If you're using a shipping box, in order to get that cabinet look, okay, so that it looks kind of like a cabinet, okay, you're going to want to cut off the 2 shorter pieces. So if you leave these 2 pieces on there, too short. But if you leave these 2 pieces on there, perfect, they cover it up. And by the way, you can decorate the outside later. We won't worry too much about that right now. But if you are using some kind of a shipping box, you just want to go ahead and cut off those ends so that it looks a little bit more like a cabinet than a box, okay? So you can go ahead and do that real quick. But that's really all you need for the cabinet that's going to hold your ofrenda, okay? And there you go. So that's essentially the same thing that we have here. So we can actually move on from that and go to our altar. But I do want to mention that if you don't have the cabinet, it's totally fine. You can do that at a later time. Okay. So with our altar, this is where, if you have our kit, you have two items that look like little cubes. Okay, here, I'll put them here to show you. Okay, so 2 little cubes. They may be this size, or there was another type of a shape we had for the cubes as well that may look a little bit more like this. That's fine, but you have 2 of them. So it's 2 chunky items. If you don't have our kit, that's totally fine. We have a few options for you. So like I said, you can have the toilet paper roll. You can also go ahead, and I have a piece of cardboard right here. And I'll show you another thing that's a real nice cheat for how to get the legs of your table. You just cut a piece of cardboard and then fold it in half, preferably more evenly than I just did. Fold it in half. Then really what you have is the bottom of a table, okay? So that will, you can see it there, that will help to hold up your table. To make it a bit more sturdy, you can do 2 of those. Okay, try to make them the same height, ideally, again, not like I just did. So if you're doing them the same height, you just put 2 pieces back to back. Make sure they're the same height. Fold them in half. And then you have 2 little table legs. So really anything to make the bottom of your table, your altar sturdy is really what you're doing. So whatever your base is, that's fine. You're going to take now another item that you have in your craft, which is this little wood plaque, flat wood plaque. That's the top of your altar. If you don't have that, no problem. You can just cut a piece of cardboard really out of anything. If you have a cereal box, that's fine too. Okay, so really any piece of cardboard. The size is going to depend on the size of your cabinet. I'd say you want about half the size of your cabinet. So it kind of proportionally looks a bit more like the one that I was showing you. Ours is about half the size of our cabinet.
Excuse us.
Yes.
We didn't quite catch what we were supposed to do with the 2 little blocks.
Sure, we're going to tell you right now. You're just in time. So take your 2 little blocks. It's a perfect time to get us started on that. We're going to take your 2 little blocks and you're going to glue one side of each. Glue one side of each, preferably the part with the hole in it. All right, here, let me do it down here for you.
Okay, look at the corner picture, Nevaeh, because you can see what she's doing with it.
Okay, take that, the corner, and you're going to glue one top of it. Okay. If you have the paper, you can glue the top of your paper like that. Okay. Let me know if I go too fast. I'm really grateful for you for stopping me there and getting you on the right track. Once you glue it, you're going to take your plaque or your cardboard and you're going to attach it. Just like that, like you're giving it legs. Like it's a table and you're giving the table legs. So that's what you're going to do. If you have a cardboard and your pieces of cardboard here, you're going to do essentially the same thing. Okay, and so you give it some legs. Okay. See, can you see that there? Yes. So those are going to be the legs of your altar. I wouldn't get too caught up in right now in whether it's even or not. But ideally you do want it to, if you're doing this one, yeah, you do want it to be a little bit more even so that it's standing up. Okay, let me get that. Okay, there you go. So it's standing up like that. You can see it there. Fantastic. So you've got those two blocks and you've made them into this altar. What you're going to do next, if you do have a cabinet, is go ahead and glue this altar to the cabinet. In order to do that, you're going to take what you just made, your altar. If you have our kit, you have this. And you're going to glue the other side of those blocks. Okay. And you're going to try to put them right in center. If you have our kit, put them in the center toward the back and glue them right into your box. And there you have your altar. If you don't have our kit, you're essentially going to do the same thing. So now you have to glue these sides of it, all 4 of the bottom of your legs. And you're going to go ahead, and you have to be a bit more delicate when you do it. Let's see if I can get the right angle for you. There you go. And we're going to put them in as well. Okay, so then you have your table there. Really, you can use this paper, or you can find anything that has a little bit of depth to it to be able to hold up that tabletop. Okay, great. So, and continue if you have questions, definitely put them in the chat for me. So now you have the sense of this craft and where we're going with it. We have our altar. Let's
Stacey?
see, next thing. Oops,
Stacey?
yes, another question? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I think some people can only see the one shot of your face.
Right, thank you.
I
That should help a little bit.
think that will help.
Let's see, if you swipe, you may be able to see, depending on whether you have it on your camera or on on your phone or on a laptop. If you swipe, you may be able to see multiple views, or you may have an option on Zoom to change the view that you have. We have 2 views pinned, so thank you for letting me know that, Al. We have 2 views pinned. One is of where my hands are working on the craft, and the other one is kind of my face and or my face in the table. So I'll try to leave it a bit more on the table and my face while I'm doing this part for you all. And but also there is another view on the camera. If you scroll, you'll be able to see the spotlight on my hands. But do continue to let me know if you can't see anything. And Al or Robbie will definitely let me know about it so I can get you a better view. Thank you, Al, for letting me know. And so, let's see, great. We are going to now do our tablecloth. So here it is. This is our tablecloth if you have our kit. If you don't have our kit, you can either use the paper towel or a piece of fabric. Either way, what you want to do is cut it to the size of your altar. So if you have our kit, it's maybe a little bit smaller than the size I gave you for our little, this was our little plaque. You're making a tablecloth for that. This may be a little bit too big. So if you cut off the ends, you can do it either side. The plain side could be on top or the side with the stripe, up to you. But you can go ahead and cut your tablecloth. If you're using a paper towel, same thing, or other fabric, go ahead and just cut it about the size of what you would need to cover the piece of cardboard that you have. Okay, so I have my cardboard here. And so I'm just putting the tablecloth on top. I'll tell you a little bit more about how to make it a little bit prettier. And if you're using, same thing with this one, if you're using my material, then you're doing it like that. You're putting it on top. What you want to do is fold the corners down of your tablecloth, kind of pinch them if you can. Let me get you the view here. Yeah, you can just pinch them here. Pinch each of the corners of the tablecloth. Does not matter. There's no, it's really any way you want to do it. It doesn't have to be particularly neat. And then what you can do, make sure it's the right size for your tablecloth. For your altar. Okay, and then you could go ahead and when you pinch those corners, you can glue them together. Now I'm realizing I forgot to mention one thing you could use. It's optional, but it might help. Is you could use a paper clip for this part because you're gluing these pieces together. And sometimes if you have the fabric I gave you, you'll see that it holds pretty, oh, sorry, here you go. Oh, great, I'm so glad here that you can see it. I did see that comment. So here you can see the glue holds it pretty well in our material. It should do the same on with the paper towel or any material you have. So you're just trying to make it so that the tablecloth lays down a little bit more and falls like you would see it on a tablecloth. Depending on your material, that's going to be easier. You could then glue the top part to the altar. So you're taking the glue and just gluing the main middle part of your fabric right in the middle. I'll show you here, right in the middle. And you're going to put it right on your altar. And push down just a little bit. I'll show you here, push down just a little bit. So then you have your altar. You can then adjust it accordingly to make the sides come down a little bit more. this material is pretty moldable, I would say. Okay, but you can use a paper clip to help. Let me do it myself, and then I'll show you what it looks like. So you can use a paper clip if you have one. I'm not sure if you can see it on that angle. Oh, there you go. I have the paper clip over here just to hold it down so that glue stays in the place you want it. The same exact process is what you would do for this paper towel. You can see me on the other screen, gluing the corners of it. You can see the corners there. I have some glue on. You're going to pinch them together. Pinch those corners together. And let's check that it fits. In my case, mine's a little small. So I might adjust that a little bit. Let it come out a little bit more. And then I will glue my middle. Glue the middle of the tablecloth and then set it on top so it has its permanent spot there. Okay. So this is our one made with materials in our home. And then we have one. And also, again, you can use your paper clip there as well to hold down these sides. If you're using another fabric, the paper towels glue really well, so I wouldn't worry about it if you're using the paper towels. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take my paper clip off. If you're using glue sticks, it tends to glue. I'm going to just do this side. It tends to dry pretty quickly if you're using a glue stick. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions about that. And of course, Al and Robbie, if you see any questions I should know, do continue to tell me, which is great. Otherwise, I'm just assuming I can go on ahead. So our next stop, as it were, or next step, we will get to in a minute, and we're going to talk about our fruit. So you have a couple of minutes, maybe a minute or two, to go gather some fruit or maybe make some. You can go ahead and start drawing it. Here's some examples that my children made, which I think is fantastic. So there's some flowers, because we'll need some flowers later. I think there's a hamburger and a hot dog on there. We have some other food items as well, and some other flowers. So you can go ahead and start drawing some of those, because our next steps, we're going to get into the flowers, these specific offerings that we're making, the flowers and the food. You can go ahead, if you're making it with markers, you can color them in. Let me see if you can see that there. We have, I believe it's grape on the bottom. We have a strawberry. We have a flower vase as well. For those of you who can see better in this angle, let me bring it up to you there. There you go. Okay, so go ahead and start drawing. When you think about this loved one, what were their favorite foods? As part of this ofrenda, that's what we're thinking about, is all of the things this person loved. That's part of the offerings we're making to them. And so you can go ahead, if you don't have our kit, you can start drawing them. Even if you have our kit and you want to add some items that are more personalized to the person you're thinking of, it's a great time to start drawing those. And we can cut them out in a little bit. You can cut them out after you're finished. It's so important on the ofrenda to have these offerings for that loved one. And as part of it, we'll do that with our food. Additionally, we're going to be having some flowers and a candle, and the flowers and the candle help guide the spirit in the afterlife. And so the smell of the flowers and the light of that candle, and also, like I said, the favorite foods are part of what we'll have on this ofrenda. And Al, can you tell us why food is important in Mexican culture?
Sure. Yeah, food has always been important. And in fact, when you're talking about, food kind of guiding it, it's also very inviting. And so many times people will put like sweet bread or pan dulce on because, the sweet smell of it is something that is very comforting and very inviting. But food is just really important. In fact, I don't really eat that much bread because I eat tortillas. And so I eat tortillas pretty much with everything, because a tortilla is kind of like, it can be your plate, it can be your eating utensil, and it's food, you eat it. So it's very multidimensional. Food is really important. In fact, the day after Thanksgiving, we'll be making tamales. We make our own tamales here. And 11% of the restaurants in the United States are Mexican food restaurants. So they are very popular. And also many non-Mexican food restaurants will have Mexican food like nachos or, tacos. So it's a very big part of, mainstream US culture here. And it's also very communal. Even this morning, my wife was saying, well, next weekend we have family coming over, so we should make enchiladas, because some people can make beans, some people can cut the onions, some people can grate the cheese, some people can roll them. There's a lot of family involvement that can take place around the food.
That's great. I hadn't thought of that family integration with food as much, but that makes so much sense that family and food are so connected to each other. I know you mentioned the 11% of restaurants in the US. Well, I know I had Mexican food twice last week, so we just love it in my household. So that is fantastic. I am glad to hear that, and I wish I was going to be at your event when your relatives come over and you're making those enchiladas. But you're a little bit too far away for me to get to, Al. At least
I'll send you a photo.
Oh, that would be great. I would love that. Please do. I love it when you send me photos. I'm here. Al commented on earlier, I'm a city folk. I'm here. He didn't say that, but I'm here in the city. And so every time I see pictures of Al's, where Al is, I'm just in awe. It's so beautiful over there. And I know some folks on this call also have absolutely, the city is beautiful. That's great too. That's where I am. But also having beautiful, spacious places with lots of land and everything. Oh, I'm always jealous of your photos, Al. So yes, send me those photos of those pictures too, please, of the food. Okay, so here we go. Let's make our plate. And if you've been watching me, I've kind of been multitasking as I was listening to Al, but also chatting. I've been making food from the drawings that my children made. I've been making I cut out their drawings. So this is a plate that they drew, that my son drew. And here's some fruit that I can put on that plate. So if you have our kit, you should have 3 little pieces of fruit in there. If you don't have our kit, you can go ahead and you're drawing and you're making your own fruit. And I had a strawberry here that I cut out, but I can't find, but you get a sense. I have it here. So if you have our kit, what you're going to see, obviously, maybe your loved one didn't like this particular food, but maybe they did. So you can always draw your own. But we have in the kit, we had things like little cherries. Let's see, can you see our little cherries you might see in the kit? You might see some apples in your kit. There's some grapes, different colored grapes in the kit. Let me show up here. So we have these items in your kit, which is great. And so what you're going to do also is you have your button if you have the kit, and you may have different types of buttons. Here's another type of button you may see in your kit. Okay, so whatever button you got, that's going to be your bowl. And it's a clever way to do it for those of you who are into crafting, because once you put the stuff on top of it, you're not going to see that hole in it. So buttons are really a great thing to use for crafts. So you're going to really, the process is the same, whether you've made your own and cut it out, or whether you have some type of fruit pieces, either from our kit or from your house, not real fruit, because we don't want it to go bad, but toy fruit or charms or beads. And you have your buttons, you're doing the exact same process, is you're gluing your fruit or food to your plate. Okay, whether it's paper or whether it's the pieces that you have. So you can go ahead, glue the button part, and we can add some fruit to it. Okay, so you're gluing the button part first. That way you just have to add on the fruit. Could be vegetables. I have a piece of corn here. We like corn in our household. So we have some corn, and actually more specifically, my father liked corn. So there you go. In some cases, you can get really fun with it. I have a little mini hamburger We didn't have those for the kits, but I do happen to have one in the house. So whatever was their favorite food, you can add, or you can do the fruits and vegetables that we had in the kit that you got sent. I added a pair here. Okay. So there you go. Go ahead and do that. Once you're done with that part of it, you're going to then place it in your cabinet. What you're not going to do is put it on the altar. What you're going to do is put it next to the altar. So I know it looks like, just to clarify, I know it looks like this is like the floor and this is a table, but that's not quite what it is. This is a cabinet. So imagine this on top of a table or hanging even on a wall. And then this altar on the inside is on top of that. So really this bottom part of the altar is not a floor. So you're not putting your food on the floor, you're putting the food on the bottom of the cabinet on either side of where you put your altar. Okay, and so you're going to go ahead and glue the bottom part of the button or the paper. Okay, and you're going to attach it to the bottom part of your cabinet. So it's on the side there. Okay, and I'll show you one more time with the paper version. I'm gluing the pieces of paper. In this case, I just have grapes. I glued it right there. And I'm going to put it on the side. Okay. Okay. So that's the fruit. That's our one of our offerings, which is wonderful. We've assembled that. We've glued that there. While and actually before, I'm going to go ahead with one other item. I did want to ask Al a question, but I'm going to go ahead with another item if I can. I want us to go ahead and make our flower vase. So shifting these around for those who have my instructions here. I'm shifting things around a little bit. I want us to go ahead and make our flower vase too. So you're putting together your plate with your food on top, and I want us to get started also on the flowers as well. Thinking about timing on these. I think we can do it. Let's see. If you have our kit, you have 3 little flowers. And if I'm going too fast, definitely let me know. If you have our kit, you have 3 little flowers that are plastic. If you don't have our kit, you can do this part later or you can do it now, but we're going to go ahead and have you make a little flower. Okay, and this is just out of tissue. Okay, so let's show you how to make the flowers. Let's say you have a piece of tissue. You're going to cut, I would say, 2 small squares. I'd say about 1 inch each. And you can see me doing it right now. Doesn't have to be particularly neat because ultimately they're all going to get bunched up anyway. So you're going to take 2 pieces of tissue, put them together. You can even do them kind of slanted, so you don't have to be neat here. And you're going to pinch the middle. Let's see, pinch the middle. Okay, make sure you get both of those pieces. And then move your fingers up where you pinched. That's how you bring it together. I'm going to show you that one more time. So we have our 2 pieces of tissue just flat. We're going to go ahead and pinch the middle. And then just move your fingers up where you pinched. So you've got a good firm grasp of that. You're then going to twist it really hard, right where you pinched it. Okay, twist it really hard so it's tight. You'd be surprised that stays together pretty well. And you're going to puff out the top of it, and then you have a little flower right there. So let's see, can you see it? Let me show you at this angle. So you have a little flower out of tissue. So very simple. If you have markers, you can go ahead and color it. I would recommend coloring the tips. You can go ahead and color the tips orange. If you have some markers, just so you give it a little bit of color. Okay, but you don't have to, you can leave them white, plenty of white flowers. Otherwise, there's certainly other colors you can make of them. Now that you have flowers, okay, and you can do 3 of these, or frankly, because these are thicker, you really probably just need the one that's going to fit in your bead that we're going to use as a base. So if you have your homemade flower, you're going to take whatever button you've decided you're going to use that you have around your home, and you're just going to try to squeeze it in there. It may not go down that far into the button. I'm sorry, I'm saying button, into the bead. May not go down that far into the bead, but that's okay because you're going to use glue. So, and this goes for everyone, whether you have our kit or not, take the bead that you want to use for your flowers. Okay, it could be any of the 3 beads you have. One you're going to use for flowers and one you'll use for your candle. So you can decide which bead looks better as a candle, which bead looks better as a flower. Okay, as a flower vase or flower pot. Take your bead and take your glue, and you want to try to really throw a lot of glue on top of there. Okay, so you should be able to see. This is not focusing, but you get the idea. You should be able to see the glue. And then you're going to go ahead and try to put your flower into the hole. And there's your little vase. Okay, if you do have our kit, you're going to do that same thing basically, except you will have room. You should have room for all 3. So you'll take a bead. In this case, I'm just going to show you on the same bead. Glue the top. Put in 1 flower into it. You can squeeze in another flower. And then you should have room, depending on which bead you pick. You might have room for a 3rd flower. Maybe. There you go. Okay, and that's our little vase if you have our kit. Okay, there you go. So, regardless of which one of these 2 things you have, you can go ahead and glue the bottom of it, and that is what you're going to place on the other side of your altar. Right there. You can start to see how absolutely adorable this is looking. At least I hope. You can start to see how cute this is looking and how really it's such a nice tribute to whoever it is that you are thinking of, that's in your mind and is the focus of your ofrenda today. Here is me doing it with the homemade version of this craft, gluing the bottom of it. And again, going to put it on the other side. Okay. And there you go. So while our folks are doing those things, I'm wondering, I said, Al, I had a question for you. You're not off the hook. I do have a question for you. I wanted to know if you could tell me more about the history of Mexico.
Sure, and I won't say too much about it because I know we're kind of running short on time, but I did want to say that you know, Mexico has this rich history, and there have been civilizations going back 3,000 years, and we call that Mesoamerica, and it basically stretches from central Mexico to Central America, and there were these civilizations that arose back, you know, 3,000 years. The Olmecs were 1,500 years ago, and they devised astronomy and irrigation. They had their own pyramids. They did all kinds of things. And then, of course, you know, Mexico or France and Spain tried to colonize Mexico. They gained their independence. in 1821, about 200 years ago. And Mexico and the US have been really solid trading partners all this time. And in fact, one of the biggest exports from Mexico is the avocado. The price of avocado is going down, even though the price of everything else is going up. So get your guacamole on. And
I love it.
the other thing I just wanted to mention is that there are these fantastic anthropology museums in Mexico City, and a lot of their stuff is online. So if you want to know more about Mesoamerican civilizations, just go online, type in Anthropology Museum, Mexico City, and you'll be able to learn a lot more about it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Al, for sharing that. Obviously, we can talk forever about Mexican culture. It's so rich, the history, absolutely. And but you're, like you said, we're running short on time. I wanted us to get started then, because of that, on our next part, which is the garland. And this is going to take a little time. So I'm just going to show you how to do it. But you're probably going to want to do this after, finish it off after our call, because it'll take a little bit of time to do. And I want to make sure we get through the other couple of parts that we have. I think there's 3 more parts after this that are pretty quick. With this one, you're going to take a string that you have in your kit or your own string. You're going to do the same thing for the flowers that if you don't have our kit that we had before, you're going to make some flowers, okay? Or if you have our kit, you're going to use the flowers there. You can do the garland one of 2 ways. One is you can have the flower hanging down, like this one is kind of dangly, or you can have the flower that's a little bit more tight and firm, closer to the string. And the difference is whether you weave it through, again, this is if you have our kit, one of the leaves on the fabric flower. So you see, if you pull it apart a little bit, there's a hole in there. You're going to weave, you can't see it on my screen, but if you have our kit, you can try to do that. Push apart the leaves so that you reveal the hole. And then what you do is you push the string through the hole.
Well, she's supposed to be on the Girl Scout thing with me, but she's playing on the tablet.
So go ahead and you can start doing that, but just so you can get a sample of how it looks, okay? If you weave it through both of the leaves on the string, then it'll be more tight and close to the string. If you only weave it through one, that's fine too. But if you have our kit, you have 3 flowers, and what it will look like in the end is this that you will put on top, okay? After you string them, you can just glue them to the inside, or you can, string, or you can tuck it into the top of your box, okay? You can even take a paper clip and kind of just push it in to the top of the box. That's what I did here. You can see you just push it in, okay? Just make sure you glue the string so that it stays in. You're going to do that one probably after when our call is over today, when this Zoom is over today, but go ahead and do that. So now you know how to do that part. But I want to show you the quicker parts that we can do right now. And that is, one of them is your candle. You'll take one of your strings, okay? You're going to just cut a little bit of it off. Half an inch is fine, depending on the side of your bead. And you're going to push that string up through, actually, you don't have to do it that way. And you're going to just tuck it into the hole in your bead, okay? And if you can't get it very far, what you can do is just glue the top of it. And this is your candle. So whatever bead you wanted to use for your candle, you're going to glue the top and then go ahead and put the string either through it or just use the glue to hold it on, okay? And then you have the tip of your candle. You may want to have it a bit shorter than I do here. And there you go, that's your candle. And that's one of the reasons we use the red or orangey color string. You're going to glue the bottom part and put it right on the top of your altar. And I see we're already at 12. We'll be probably another 5 minutes. I hope you can hold on, stay on the call with us. If you can't, We're going to go ahead and send the video out anyway after the craft, so that's fine. It might take a day or two to get that out to you though. So there's your candle. Another item you have in your kit is the butterfly. And the butterflies are meaningful because they really symbolize the spirit of that loved one. If you have our kit, our butterflies are plastic, you can fold them in half or not. You don't have to fold them in half. You fold them in half, you can glue one side and you can glue those to the side of the cabinet or to the back of the cabinet. I'll just give you an example of two of those. If you're making your own at home, what you would do is you would color, you would not color, but you would draw and then color your butterfly and then cut it out. And you can do the same thing. The only thing you're going to do is make sure you put, when you put them on the back, you put them on the side of the back, not in the middle, because that's where the picture of your loved one will go. You can put them on this side if you have our kit, but not on this side because it'll stop the door from closing. Okay, so you can put some butterflies in there. Those are pretty easy to glue on. The other item we have to glue on is we have in our kit our paper, our papel picado, as it is called, or pierced paper. For those, that's also pretty easy. You're just going to bend each piece at the tip. And glue the part that you bent, the top part of the part that you bent. I'm going to just do it on all three just to show you. And you'll see where I'm attaching them to the top. If you have your own pieces, either with a doily or maybe you made your own paper like you do those snowflakes, you can go ahead and do the same thing. In my case, I'm putting them right up front, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so these are pretty close up front. Or you can kind of stagger them like this one. This one, some are closer in the front, some are farther back. While our folks are doing that, and then it's just one more part of it. Al, do you want to tell us about the cultural groups that make up Mexico today? And then we just have one more part we're going to do.
Sure. There are very many different cultural and ethnic groups in Mexico, and a lot of that is because of its history. About 62% of the Mexican citizens identify as mestizo, which is a combination of the indigenous peoples and the European ancestry. And in fact, I identify as mestizo because I have about 64% indigenous identity, as well as about 14% Spanish identity. But 28% indigenous Americans. There are also Afro Mexicans, Asian Mexicans, Cubans, and many other groups, but about 98% of the Mexican population will speak Spanish. And then there are other groups that will speak native or indigenous languages, primarily in southern Mexico.
Thank you for sharing that. I think your screen kind of froze for a little bit, but I could hear you, so I'm assuming everybody else could hear you as well. And it's in the caption if you had caption turned on. Hopefully you heard that. So thank you for sharing that with us. We have our one last part. I did want to mention the paper. The reason we do the paper is it symbolizes air. There's elements, there's all four elements in the ofrenda. One is the candle, which symbolizes fire, the food, which symbolizes earth, the paper that we just added, which symbolizes air. And usually you would add a glass of water. We didn't want to do that because we didn't want the water to spill. And it's hard to make little glasses of water so that we really could symbolize water as an element as well. But if you had an ofrenda, a full-size ofrenda, you'd be adding a cup of water as well to add that feature to it. The last part and the most important part really is ultimately this is all about the person you love. And so if you have our kit, you have one more plaque left, which you're going to go ahead and just glue. And then you're going to glue it to the back middle of behind your altar, that important spot of honor right there. The reason we're making this all of these offerings are for this person, so we want them in this location of honor. If you have your own kit, you don't need to go find a wood plaque. I have a piece of paper here, and you can go ahead and add that to the back. Really, you don't need the paper at all. It's just a space saver, really. So if you just have a picture and you want to go ahead and put the picture on without having a piece of cardboard or the plaque behind it, that's totally fine. The most important thing is that you do have that picture of your loved one. And I showed you a few samples of ones that my family has made. It's so important. Here's another one that was made by my daughter, commemorating my cousin. So we have these beautiful ofrendas. Hopefully you've gotten far enough along with yours, you get a sense of it. We'd love to see what your ofrenda looks like, even if it's not complete. If you want to go ahead and show us, let us go ahead and say hi and show us your ofrenda. Anybody want to share theirs?
Hey, hey.
Hi.
Let's. Do you see the picture in my mom and I's background in my mom's room?
Yes.
It's a puzzle my mom did with mine and Nana's help.
That is great.
Like 3 tries to get it with all the pieces.
I love that you did it as a family, and it looks beautiful, and what a wonderful vision of what Day of the Dead is celebrating. Thank you for sharing that. So thank you, everyone. I'm so glad you got to join us. Robbie, you're going to talk us out. And thank you for sharing that image behind you and telling us your story about making it. It's so appreciated. Robbie, do you want to talk us out? And thank you, Al, for joining us and giving us some insights. So excited, and for giving us the idea to do the ofrenda in the first place. Robbie, take us away.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. Thank you, Stacy and Al. Thanks for everybody joining and building your beautiful ofrendas. This is not a one and done topic. So you're going to receive our recording of this event. You're going to receive our infographic. We encourage you to share the infographic and, continue learning about Mexican culture and other cultures. Our email will include a brief survey of what you thought of the event. Please give us your feedback if you can. We have an event coming up looks like December 17th. I can't believe it's going to be December, celebrating Hanukkah. We'll be making our own candles for a Hanukkah celebration. So that's our next Celebrate and Create. Hope to see you there. We also have an online small business networking event on November 10th. So there's other stuff coming up in the meantime. And please consider donating. We're a small nonprofit. Every little bit helps put together these kits and mailing them out. And we hope to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us today.